Welcome to Smack This, the unofficial Godsmack podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Humphrey, where I talk all things Godsmack. This is episode 50 this week. 50 episodes, and I'm still talking about Godsmack. This episode is about Pantera's influence on Godsmack. That's going to be a lot of fun, so hang on for that. But this week in Godsmack news, on Monday, the band asked a question to us, the fans: what's your favorite new song off the album Lighting Up the Sky that they have played live so far? I personally said them all. I said Lighting Up the Sky's Soul on Fire, Surrender, What About Me, all sound fantastic live, and yeah, so that's what I said. On Tuesday, Shannon posted a picture on Instagram of him with Whitfield Crane and Kloss of the band Ugly Kid Joe. He was actually at their show in Fort Myers, easy for me to say, Fort Myers, Florida. And so that was really cool to see. Like I said last week in Godsmack News, June, the band's pretty much took this whole month off. Um, I haven't seen anything, heard anything other than they're just going to rest and have fun with their family and friends, and Shannon's already did that. So, yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, they deserve it. And that's it, Godsmack News. This week is episode 50. I'm going to talk about the Cowboys from Hell, Pantera, their influence on Godsmack. This week's episode, I'm going to continue the influence on Godsmack series or episodes. Last week I started with Alice in Chains. If you didn't see that, go back and check that out. I really like that episode, putting that episode together, where I talked about the influence Alice in Chains had on Godsmack. Plus, I talked about the band's history and their albums. Plus, I picked out some of my favorite songs off their albums. So in this week, I'm going to continue to do the same, but this time with the band Pantera. Now, I don't really see a influence like visually. I don't really see it. They don't dress like Pantera or act like Pantera. But I do hear it every now and again on the heavier Godsmack songs. Um, like Sick of Life off of the Awake album, or Releasing the Demons off the Faceless album, or War and Peace on the Oracle album, or What's Next on 1,000 Horsepower. Pantera was basically a groove metal band, so they always had this great guitar groove, and those songs have that from Tony or Sully. So, yeah, that's the ones I picked. If I missed one, write me a comment down below. Plus, every now and again, Godsmack will play a little bit of the song Walk in concert, usually right before they play the song Keep Away. Sully will play the little intro part of the song Walk and have the crowd sing the chorus, which is always cool to see. Uh, let's see. You could tell both bands became really good friends, especially during Ozfest 2000. Pantera's actually even in Godsmack's DVD, Smack This, which I talk about. Sorry, there's my notes already. Which I talk about in episode 5, so that's like way back there. So if you want to check that out, that DVD review, I talk a lot about Pantera and Godsmack in that DVD. So that's basically the influence that I've seen or hear. So let's talk about Pantera. So here's a little info. The band is actually from Dallas, Texas, formed in 1981 by Vince Abbott, aka Vinnie Paul, on drums, Daryl Abbott, aka Dimebag Daryl, on lead guitar. Now, at this point, they had a rhythm guitar player named Terry Glaze, but he would quickly switch to just lead vocals. and of course Rex Brown on bass, and at this time he was calling himself Rex Rocker, which I think is actually kind of a cool name, especially around this time in the 80s. This version of the band did release 3 independent albums. All of them were produced by Vinny and Daryl's dad, Jerry Abbott. Metal Magic in 1983, Projects in the Jungle 1984, I Am the Night in 1985. Then the band decided to switch singers in 1986. They found a singer from New Orleans, Louisiana, Phil Asomo, joined the band, and they released another independent album called Power Metal. Now, I'm not really going to talk about those songs or those albums, actually. I haven't really even listened to them. I've heard from fellow friends who like Pantera a lot, like me. Some of them say it ain't even worth the listen. I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of scared too, because at this point they were actually kind of a glam hair metal band. They had the big poofy hair and stuff like that, which I loved. I do still love those bands, but Pantera doing it, I don't know. So, but if you have, write me a comment down below or tell me a song to check out. They decided to change their image and sound to groove metal. That's what I was talking about, the guitar-wise groove in all their songs. And they were kind of heavy metal in some parts. Now, here's a part, when I was putting this episode together, here's a part I did not know about. Dimebag Darrell was actually asked before they got signed to join Megadeth. But he didn't do it because he wanted Vinnie Paul to be part of Megadeth as well on the drums, and I guess Dave Mustaine said no, they already had a drummer, so Dimebag Darrell actually turned it down. Like I said, I did not know that. The band did sign to a major record label, Atco Records. It's ATCO. There's such bands on that record label as the Allman Brothers, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, New York Dolls, Queensryche, the band called Yes, plus a ton more. Just kind of give you an example. So let's go with the first album, the first major release album, I should say. The album's called Cowboys from Hell. It was produced by Terry Date, released July 24th, 1990. 3 singles came off of this. The title track, Cowboys from Hell, Cemetery Gates, Psycho Holiday. Now, it says singles, but Pantera did not get any radio airplay. In fact, it's kind of hard to hear them on the radio now. If they do get played on the radio, it's that one song, and you know the song I'm going to talk about on the next album. However, this album did sell 2 million albums in the United States. When this album came out, I didn't even know who Pantera was. It wasn't until the next album that came on my radar, and then I bought the second album and then bought this one because I didn't even know they had 2 albums at that point. My favorites on this, the title track, Cowboys from Hell. I love that song. In fact, I was at a rodeo 2 years ago, I think, and they actually played this song. I was like floored. I couldn't believe it. Cemetery Gates, Shattered, Domination are all great songs. Those are my favorites off this album. So after they did the album, they went on tour with Exodus and Suicidal Tendencies. I had a brain relapse there. I was fixing the camera and drew a blank. They also opened for Judas Priest. They co-headlined with Wrathchild of America. Now, Wrathchild America is Shannon Larkin's very first band. He actually formed this band. I have not done an episode on Wrathchild America. I need to do one. So he actually toured with Pantera way before Godsmack did. Plus, they did Monsters of the Rock tour with AC/DC, Motley Crue, Metallica, and Black Crowes. You're talking about a lineup. That show rocks right there. So after the tour, they come back for their second album, and this is kind of the album that I got introduced to them. Vulgar Display of Power. Love the album cover. If you've never seen it, it's a guy getting punched in the face. It's real. It's real. I can't remember. For some reason, I'm thinking I read where Dimebag Darrell said they paid the guy $100 for each photo shot to get punched in the face until they got it right. But the guy's immortalized, really. It was produced by Terry Date, released February 25th, 1992. This one had 4 singles off of it: Mouth of War, This Love, Hollow, and of course the big mega hit for Pantera, Walk. Like I said, this is the album that introduced me to them. I was watching Headbangers Ball. I either watched it live that late night Saturday night or watched it the next day, Sunday, because I had to work, so I would record it on VHS. And I came across this song, the video, and I was about to fast forward, and I was like, Pantera, who in the world's Pantera? And then I heard that do-do-do, do-do-do, and I was like, what is this? And the crowd's going in crazy. Dimebag Darrell's got a Ace Frehley tattoo on his chest, the Space Ace with the makeup. I was like, yeah, I'm hooked on this. The chorus was simple but catchy. The groove, I loved that. So yeah, this is what that song turned me into a Pantera fan. And like I said, I went out and got this album, and then I saw they had another one, Cowboys from Hell, so I ended up buying both at the same time. This album sold 2 million albums. Again, like I said, they say they released, what they mean is they made music videos for. Now, MTV didn't play any of this unless it was Headbangers Ball. But they weren't getting any radio play. They weren't a regular on MTV. Even years later, actually. My favorites on this album, Mouth of War, A New Level, of course, Walk, Effin' Hostile, there's my notes again, This Love, Rise, Hollow. This is a great record. I actually really like this album a lot, but it's not my favorite Pantera album. What is it? We'll see. So, after they made the album, they went out on tour with Skid Row. They were the opening act for Skid Row. Skid Row was headlining on the Slave to the Grind tour. In fact, Skid Row and Pantera came to here, my hometown, on prom night of all nights, prom night. So I was like, prom, Skid Row, Pantera, prom, Skid Row, Pantera. But I ended up going to prom. Missed the show. But anyway, they also went on the Monsters of Rock tour again, this time with Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath were the co-headliners. You're talking about a good show right there. Then, after that tour, they recorded their third album, which is called Far Beyond Driven. Again, it was produced by longtime producer Terry Date, if you haven't realized that by now. Released March 22nd, 1994. This one had 4 singles as well, like I said, basically videos. Although Beavis and Butthead, I think it's this first song I'm fixing to say, was on an episode of Beavis and Butthead, and they kept saying, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. I'm Broken, Black Sabbath cover, Planet Caravan, 5 Minutes Alone, Becoming, all great songs. I love all those songs. Plus, this was their first #1 album. Again, a band that didn't get any airplay, a band that didn't hardly get played on MTV, like I said, unless it was Headbangers Ball. Had a #1 album. I bet Billboard about you know what on them, on themselves. This album sold 1 million albums. It's also the first time that I noticed this. This is the first time, I'll spit it out here in a second. This is the first time Daryl actually nicknamed himself Dimebag Daryl was on this album. This is my favorite all-time Pantera album. I actually love this album. I bought it when it first came out, and I still listen to it every now and again, but not as much as I used to. I actually have most of it on a playlist on Spotify, plus the greatest hits, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I love this album. My favorites are Strength Beyond Strength, Becoming, 5 Minutes Alone, I'm Broken, Slaughter, Use My Third Arm, which I always thought was a funny title, and Planet Caravan. Again, I love this album. It's so good. Check it out. If you're a Pantera fan, you have to have this album. Then the band went out on tour, but this time there was actually tensions started to rise within the band with Phil and the Abbott brothers, especially when Phil hurt his back. The doctor actually suggested surgery for it, but he didn't want to do that to stop the tour. He wanted to keep going. He actually got hooked on heroin because he was using heroin as a painkiller at this point. Plus, a little more attention was added when Phil formed a side project band called Down, D-O-N. I can't tell, D-O-W-N. But yeah, so that added even more tension. But they did come back and they recorded a fourth album called The Great Southern Trendkill. Again, it was produced by Terry Date, but this time it would be the last time that he would produce a Pantera album. It was released on May 7th, 1996. Again, 3 singles, but basically 3 videos. Drag the Water, Suicide Note, and Floods. This one sold 1 million albums. Now, the recording... oh, wait a minute. Let me say this first. Now, to me, this album actually gets overlooked. And I don't know why, because this album's actually really good. But it's the overlooked album. When I talk to friends who love Pantera, they hardly ever bring up this album. I always bring it up, especially like Drag the Waters. I think that's such a great song. Now, to add tension to the band, Phil actually recorded his vocals in New Orleans at Trent Reznor's recording studio, while the rest of the band recorded in Dallas, Texas. So again, it added a little more tension. You know, I'm sure they were thinking, what's Phil doing? Now, my favorites are the title track. I love that. Drag the Waters, 13 Steps to Nowhere, Floods, and Tens. And that's the number 10 apostrophe S. Great, like I said, great record. Check it out if you've never heard it. Now, Pantera went out on tour as a co-headliner with the band White Zombie. Now, here's a sad part in this. At the show in Texas, Phil actually OD'd on heroin. After the show, he was shot with an adrenaline shot. He was revived and then took to the hospital. He apologized to the band and said he wouldn't do drugs anymore. But as I was doing some research on this, I think it was Dimebag Darrell's girlfriend said he actually relapsed like 5 times during the tour. Sorry, my camera keeps going off on me. Then they got back together, and then album number 5, which isn't a studio album, and I'm counting it as album number 5, and that is a fantastic live album. It's so good. I do listen to this a lot, more than the studio albums. Like I said, I got a Pantera Spotify playlist. I listen to the greatest hits, and it's still in the car. And I'll grab this live album. It's great. It's called Pantera Official Live 101 Proof. It was produced by Vinnie Paul and Dimebag Darrell. Now it contains 14 live songs and 2 new studio tracks. They recorded it in 12 days, the new studio songs. This album sold 500,000 copies, so it went gold. One single off of it, Where You Come From, and another new song called I Can't Hide. Again, I love this album. It's so good. Pantera Live 101 Proof. It's great. It's got the cover is basically a Jack Daniels bottle. I thought that was really cool, kind of unique. Very Pantera. Now they did go on a tour to support this live album on Ozfest '97 with Ozzy and Black Sabbath, plus there was Marilyn Manson and a bunch of others. And then they also hooked up with Ozzy again on Ozfest '98, the UK version, with Black Sabbath and Ozzy, Foo Fighters, plus a bunch more. Phil, during time off, did another side project. Like I said, they did a little tour, not a big tour like they used to do, because it was just a live album. Phil did another side project band. It was called a black metal band called Viking Crown. I didn't know this part, but I won't check that out. I don't do anything black metal. I just no, I just can't listen to that. And then the Abbott Brothers, along with Rex, did a crossover album. Now I do remember this, and I still haven't listened to this. If you have, let me know. Write me a comment. It was a crossover album where country meets metal, with country legend David Allan Coe. They released an album called Rebel Meets Rebel. I remember this. I remember seeing it. I had it in my hand, and I was kind of afraid. Although I do know one song David Allan Coe sings, and I love that song. You Don't Have to Call Me Darling, Darling. But yeah, I was kind of afraid to hear it. If you have this album, Rebel Meets Rebel, write me a comment. Tell me what song I need to check out, and I'll get it. If I like it, that is. Alright, so after their little side projects, the band came back together to do their 5th studio album, 6th studio album overall, and sadly it is the last studio album for the Abbott Brothers. The album was called Reinventing the Steel. I love this album. Produced by Dimebag Darrell, Vinnie Paul, and Sterling Whitfield. It was released March 21st, 2000. 4 singles off of it. Revolution Is My Name. Goddamn Electric. I love that song. I'll Cast a Shadow and Hole in the Sky. This album sold 500,000 copies, so it went gold. My favorites off this album, I could not wait for this album. Let me stop real fast. I could not wait for this album to come out. So when it came out, I left work and went straight to a record store and got this. My favorites on this: Hellbound, Goddamn Electric, Yesterday Don't Mean Cheap, and Revolution Is My Name. Again, another favorite song. Death Rattle and Uplift. I think this is a great record. Absolutely fantastic. Now, after the album, they went on tour on Ozfest 2000 with Ozzy Osbourne, Godsmack. That's when they met. Static X, and then so they did Ozfest. Then they did a headlining tour of their own uh, with Slayer, Static X as well. Pantera, the original band, played their last show in Japan on August the 28th, 2001. So that was the end of the Reinventing the Steel tour. Then things kind of changed. Phil and Rex did another Down album, so it was Down 2. As well, Phil formed another side project band, Superjoint Ritual. The Abbott brothers kind of got frustrated, and I don't really blame them because when I was putting this together, I was reading comments where Dimebag and Vinny thought they were going to do another. When Phil did the two side project bands, they were going to do another Pantera, but Phil did another, or yeah, he was going to do Down, then ended up doing Superjoint Ritual, and they were like, "Well, what are you doing?" So, but they got uh, pissed. Let's just say it, and they said Pantera disbanded in 2003. Now, 2 months prior to this, the band released another album, uh, The Best of Pantera. It's a super long title. Far Beyond the Great Southern Cowboys Vulgar Hits. Released September 23rd, 2003. Again, I bought this. This actually has a CD and DVD with it that has all the videos on it on the DVD. This sold 1 million albums. Um, so, what did the Abbott brothers do? They decided to put together another band called Damage Plan and released their first and only album in 2004. Now, here comes some sad stuff here. Um, while on tour, Damage Plan was going to play a show in Columbus, Ohio on December the 8th, 2004. As Damage Plan takes the stage, a fan jumped up on stage with a gun. He basically shoots and kills Dimebag Darrell right then and there. He also killed a fan, a club employee. Uh, he Pantera security, and he injured longtime Pantera damage plan drum tech. Uh, yeah, on the behind the music, he actually said that he told Vinny to get out of here and pushed Vinny out of the way to leave. Um, yeah, uh, I'm not. They listed that guy's name, and I ain't even gonna give him that credit. Uh, Plus, he injured the tour manager, and then he killed himself. Um, yeah, I remember the next morning or that morning hearing it on the radio. Dimebag Darrell was shot, and I was just like, "What?" And then later it said he had passed away, and yeah, it was a total shocker. There are still fans who play uh, tribute at this place in Columbus, Ohio. They leave flowers and stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just baffles me because I think of Guitar Heroes. I think of in the '70s there was Jimmy Page, Ace Frehley, Joe Perry of Aerosmith. Then you had the '80s, the one and only Eddie Van Halen, who inspired Dimebag Darrell to play guitar, and Ace. So in the '90s you had Dimebag Darrell, Zakk Wylde. Who else? Now, but yeah, it was just a shocker. There's a lot of conspiracy theories that went on, even now, why this happened. Uh, a lot of people, including myself, think it was because of the breakup of Pantera. Uh, was a little too much because they were the ones to announce that Pantera broke up. So yeah. Then there was a lot of heat from Vinny against Phil and Phil against Vinny and back and forth stuff. Uh, Phil has said that something about he hoped Dimebag Darrell would get a beating of his life. That didn't sit well with Vinny. Phil wasn't invited to the funeral. Who was Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, The Kiss was there. Eddie Van Halen was there. So yeah, just sad stuff. Then there was always talks about a Pantera reunion. Vinny would always decline. He would say the best times were with his brother in Pantera. So, and I can see that. That'd be kind of hard to do, a reunion with your brother not being there when they were the two that formed the band. So, what did Vinny do? He decided to form a super group called Hell Yeah, with members of Mudvayne, which is a really cool band. If you've never checked out Mudvayne, check them out. They're awesome. And Nothing Face. They released 6 studio albums. Sadly, here's another sad part. We lost Vinnie Paul on June 22nd, 2018, of a heart attack while he was asleep. And yeah, again, another shocker. You couldn't believe it. Now, Phil and Rex kept doing what they were doing. They were doing down solo stuff from Phil. Rex even wrote a book. But on July 13th, 2022, Rex and Phil reunited Pantera for a 2023 tour with lead guitarist Zakk Wylde from the Ozzy Osbourne Band and Black Label Society. Plus, he was a big friend of Dimebag Darrell. So that was kind of an obvious choice. And Charlie I can never say your name, Beniente, of the on drums from the band Anthrax. I love Anthrax, but can never say Charlie's last name. Now, they've been on tour. If you've seen this tour, they call it the Legacy Tour. If you've seen it, write me a comment down below. What did you think? I kind of go back and forth on this. I wouldn't mind seeing it because it'll be the only way to see Pantera or hear Pantera live songs. And then again, I'm kind of like, I don't know. They don't really feel right sometimes. But again, you let me know. If you went, there has been rumors of lately that Phil's been talking about doing a new Pantera album with this lineup, but who knows? I would definitely at least listen to one song and then kind of go from there. Alright, so that's the history and the albums of Pantera. Homework this week. What's your favorite Pantera album? I told you mine, Far Beyond Driven. Have you seen the reunion tour? Like I said, write me a comment down below. Join the discussion. Next week is episode 51. I'm actually going to do like a recap of the Best of Times World Tour, the first leg of the tour, which was the May tour. I want to talk about the set list a little bit, talk a little bit about the shows that Brad Whitford of Aerosmith showed up to. Won't be a long episode. I'm seeing the time below, so I'm trying to wrap this up pretty good. So that'll be next week. And then the week after, we'll go back to the influences, and the band is going to be a drummer that I've actually talked about in past episodes. He actually inspired Godsmack to write a song called Serenity. I'm talking about Neil Peart. I'm talking about his band called Rush. So that'll be in 2 weeks. So If you know anybody that's a Godsmack fan, likes to talk about Godsmack, hear about Godsmack, send them this way. Give them the link. Tell them go on YouTube, Google, Firefox, whoever. Type in Smack This, the unofficial, and all the episodes will pop up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. That actually helps the podcast. Don't forget to do your homework. I want to see some of my Pantera friends out there and Godsmack friends. So, and that's it. I'll see you guys next Thursday, and you just got Godsmacked.